We've got New York Post columnist Michael Goodwin with us, Democratic strategist Max Burns, and Cornell Capital partner Ann Berry. And first of all, it's always risky to interpret a Federal Reserve chairman's statement, but the feeling was that he signaled this is just a one-shot deal. Did you buy that?
I think it was probably likely to be a one-shot deal, but the word that he kept using over and over again, if you look at the transcript of his speech, was accommodating. Right. He kept saying we're going to be accommodated from here on in. And so I didn't get the sense it was necessarily one shot. I got more of the sense it was a change in outlook that was going to continue to watch world trade, was going to continue to watch more than just the domestic economic indicators to inform policy from here for the rest of the year. And I thought that was a slightly different flavor. He
also used the word adjustment 7 times. And I'm wondering if it was an adjustment, and you're looking at this and just from a Democratic operative's perspective, what does that mean? If you're any of these candidates who want that job, the president's job, not Jerome Powell's job, do you like an adjustment? And leave it at that?
I think this gives Democrats a lot of ammo to point out that the economy is maybe not as good as the president has led us to believe. Jerome Powell himself said this was brought in to combat sort of headwinds and challenges in the economy brought on by President Trump's trade war in China. I mean, and we know this. We're not opening up the emergency money to farmers because everything's going well. And it's just another indicator that maybe this economy that President Trump is campaigning on is not as strong as he might like.
All right, the president said the Fed, Jerome Powell, let him down, let us all down.
Right. Well, look, I think for Democrats, the issue is, are you going to campaign for higher interest rates? Are you going to say that China is not a problem? Let's make a deal and give them our intellectual property and let them keep stealing our infrastructure jobs and things like that, so our manufacturing jobs. So I don't think this is necessarily a good political opening for Democrats. As for the president, he has been saying for a long time that the Fed was not accommodating enough vis-a-vis China and the European Union central banks. And so when you say that Powell used the word accommodating 7 times, I'm thinking...
Well, I said adjustment. I don't know how accommodating. Might have eaten that.
Yeah. But I think that does go to the heart of the president's argument. Whether he's caving into the president, I don't know, but I think it was an argument the president was making for months and months and months.
I want to switch, guys, if you don't mind. Joe Biden is still speaking to reporters right now post his debate performance last night, and he was surprised, or said he was surprised, that the party and was now getting to the point of criticizing a lot of the achievements of the Obama administration. Now, I think what they were trying to say is anything bad at the Obama administration was on Biden. Anything good was Barack Obama. But having said that, it does make you wonder. I mean, he is their most popular standard bearer. And I'm wondering what the end game is here.
I think it's actually a very dangerous path for the Democratic candidate field to start going down, because looking backwards to the Obama administration is not going to reach the electorate who wants to understand what's going to be different going forward. They've now got a president who's running on an extremely strong economic platform. And so there needs to be a message that talks about what's going to be different and incremental and additive. And they're not going to get there if they keep looking backwards rather than forward. So I think Biden should be extremely concerned that this is just going to accentuate the divisions and the inconsistency in the message across the party.
Well, he was and is. And this is from the former vice president just a couple of minutes ago. Listen to this.
I hope the next debate we can talk about how we fix our answers to fix the things that Trump has broken, not how Barack Obama made all these mistakes. He didn't. And so, but what I want to make it clear is that this going back 10, 20, 30 years is just a game that's a game to make sure that we hand the Republicans an election coming up.
What do you think of that, Max?
If we're concerned about going back 20 or 30 years, it's because there are things that we don't want people to find, and that's the case with Joe Biden. And I disagree that we're attacking President Obama. The president himself said that single-payer was what he would prefer, that that's where we should go. The Affordable Care Act was never meant to be the last word in health care. It was fixing a bad system.
It went beyond that, right? It went to deportations. It went to a couple of things that he did that they now funded, and that's what's to the party.
And the deportation is just a fact. President Obama deported a lot of people. Right. And if we want to grapple with this as a party and come away stronger, Not every conversation we have is going to be positive and everybody holding hands. It's going to be tough, but they're conversations we need to have.
What do you think of how this debate rages, though? 2 days of debates where you did have moderates and progressives at least challenging each other, a little bit more the first night than the second night.
Well, first, I would define what's going on there is not so much moderates versus progressives as the far left versus the far, far left. I don't think there's a moderate on any of these stages. But I do believe that the conflict we saw each night with everybody ganging up on the top-tier candidates. I mean, the way the split was, you had two top-tier candidates, Warren and Sanders the first night, Biden and Harris the second night, and both of them, or all four of them, got hit by Warren and Sanders for being too far out on the left, and Biden and Harris for not being far enough. So I think the party is in a very confused state right now. I mean, you have 20 very ambitious people all wanting the same job, but I think they're a long way from resolving it.
You know, and I wonder, you know, when you have a good economic environment, we can quibble over the quality of the jobs, the wage increases and all that, but you have a very good economy. So you obviously pivot to other issues that could talk about unfairness. There are those who are doing well and those who aren't doing nearly as well. You could talk about deportations or go back to health care and the mistakes that Obama-Biden made or whatever. But you do have to pivot, right?
You do have to pivot, and you've also got to do it in a very memorable and specific way, and I think that's where we're seeing a bit of weakness right now. Whoever comes out being the nominee is going to be running against a president with a very forceful, powerful way with memorable words. And what I think was so interesting, as you were speaking, was I think Mayor Pete said it. No matter what they run on, it's going to be the left or the far left. They just need to pick their policies, get out there and get a very, very strong message going. And I think that's accentuated, Neil, with the strength of the economy that we have. Debating whether it's strong or not is almost moot. They've got to come up with whatever specific policies they want and be very clear and persuasive in their communication.
You know, the one thing that I've mentioned it to Republican guests, Democratic guests, and maybe it's a statement on our times. No one talks about the debt. No one talks about the deficit. They signed on for 2 more years to continue doing this at $1 trillion a year more red ink. That's your generation that's going to be dealing with that, which is fine. But I mean, do you
we appreciate
find that? Do you find that surprising?
No, I think it's Republicans have known for years that voters don't care about spending.
Now you've joined them.
They hold Democrats to moderation and austerity and tight spending, but when they're in power, President Trump is what, 20 or 30% ahead of where Barack Obama was at this point.
So when he says, President Trump, do this budget deal, I like this budget deal, there's plenty of time to cut, says he will.
The answer is the economy's great because you spend like Democrats. So if you want a good economy and spending that helps people, put in Democrats. Don't waste time with this Diet Coke stuff.
What do you think of that?
Well, I think Paul Ryan was the last person in Congress who really believed that you had to tackle entitlements and had the courage to do it.
Look what happened to him.
Exactly.
He was vilified for pushing granting off a cliff.
I mean,
right?
Politicians are many things, but they are not stupid when it comes to seeing what works and what doesn't work. And I think there's no appetite in the general public for cutting spending. A lot of wonks say, oh, we have to do it, and we do have to do it, but there's no public appetite for it. You get killed politically if you try.
Yeah, you do.